Thank you very much. The chair now yields to Mr. Waters for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much for this hearing, Mr. Chairman. It's very important. I'd like to ask Secretary Azar, will you describe the increase in the coronavirus infections in this country right now and name the states where the increases are taking place?
So we're facing increases at the moment primarily in the upper Midwest and further west. So as we look at Montana, Wisconsin, I think North Dakota, Nebraska, that's where we're seeing primary increases, which are overcompensating or equaling out some of the decreases that we've been seeing from the outbreak in the Southwest and the Southeast that we faced in the June-July period.
Tell us.
Oh, we'll be happy to get you those numbers.
Give us the number,
We'll be happy to provide you with those. Those are also available at coronavirus.gov. All of that data is right there.
I'd like to know, do you think that the president's rallies that he has gone to where people are not social distancing the 6 feet that our experts tell us they should be doing or wearing masks, does that contribute to the increase?
So we have consistent advice, which is to practice the 3 W's for all individuals. Wash your hands, watch your distance, wear face coverings, avoid settings where you can't. And that applies to any setting, and people need to assess their individual circumstances.
So what you're saying is that these rallies where the president is and the people are not wearing masks and they're not socially distancing themselves to 6 feet certainly adds to the increase in the possibility of these infections. Is that correct?
Our advice is always the same. The 3 W's, whether it's in any type of activity, to engage in those protective activities, but always to evaluate your individual
circumstance. Have you ever talked to the president about that and given him any advice?
I don't.
Have you ever interacted with the president about him being a possible role model in this country and being one that could either help us to decrease the deaths and the infections by being a role model himself, wearing the mask and having social distancing? Have you ever had that conversation with him?
I'm not going to discuss my discussions with the president, but the president's guidelines since April have said wear face coverings, wash your hands, wear face coverings, practice social distancing. That's been the reopening guidelines. Mr. Secretary,
are you proud of the job that you have done?
I don't like to speak in those terms. 206,000 people have died.
So you don't like to speak in those terms about what you're doing? You don't like to talk about what you are saying to the president, who should be a role model to the people of this country? You can't give me any numbers about the increases that are taking place. You don't even know where those increases are taking place. And you come here today and testify with this paltry testimony that you're giving us, and you expect us to be happy. We're very unhappy about what's going on. And we feel sorry that the president and his wife and others are now experiencing, a positive test, et cetera. And how can you, as the secretary, with the responsibilities that you have, come here and not be very, very open with us about what is happening in this country, the increases and the deaths, and what we need to do, and the role modeling that we need to have? How can you come here without being prepared to do that?
I'm happy to do that if you would actually ask questions that elicit on that point. I will gladly talk to you about what the state of the disease is in the United States and the steps being taken.
Well, talk to me about DPA.
Yeah.
And tell me why, in fact, money has been diverted from DPA to build ships and military equipment instead of being directed toward PPE.
I'm the Secretary of Health, not the Secretary of Defense. We've exercised 78 distinct Domestic Defense Production Act actions. We've been aggressive with it, whether on PPE, ventilators, on testing equipment, with regard to vaccines and therapeutics. We've used it anytime we've needed it across the entire supply chain.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to yield back my time. And I want to conclude by saying that the Secretary is not here with credible testimony today, answering the questions that need to be asked. All that we hear is basically a defense, basically of the President of the United States, and a lack of openness and information about what is happening in this country, the increase in the infections and the deaths, and an unwillingness by this secretary to be candid about what we need to do. I yield back the balance of my time.